to get into some of the mindset shifts that I had to make in order to enjoy fiction again. So, just saying that it is a story. It is designed to pull us in, to bring us some sort of emotion, but it is a story that is not necessarily real. A lot of ways, yes, it could be pulling off of things that do happen in real life, of course, unless it's like a fantasy book or like a complete like sci-fi book. But just knowing, again, it is a fictional book for a reason. We also usually just see kind of a happy ending or resolution at the very end of the book, but don't get to know the rest of what would happen. So it's a very short part of a fictional story that is not the full context. Another mindset shift is that mundane day-to-day life is usually made to be more exciting in the book. Like we get all the little details. We get to, like someone is usually describing like every nook and cranny of a home, and they're making it feel so cozy and romantic, and like the weather, all the leaves are falling in this specific color. Like everything about mundane life is made way more, I feel like, romanticized in a book. And of course, we can do that in our day-to-day life. We have to pause and be present enough to notice it. But I think that even the mundane things in a book feel way more like dramatic or exciting. I had to remind myself as well that my experience of how I act in relationships doesn't match everyone else's, including characters in a book or including the authors of that book. So in episode 95, it's the When You Know episode, I talk about different reasons why someone is more likely to say when you know in their relationship versus other people who are more likely to feel doubtful or unsure about their relationships. And I've just accepted over time that the way that I was showing up in my relationship with Nate was different than other people in my life. And so whether I'm comparing to someone in my life or in a book, that doesn't have to match my experience. And that doesn't mean my experience was wrong or bad. Another important mindset shift is that there is no perfect relationship. Whatever relationship I am in, there will be things I could nitpick or things that are not exactly how I would do them. And that is true of pretty much all relationships, especially if we're coming from a more analytical perspective as a partner. Additionally, there is no perfect life where we don't feel a sense of discomfort or some sort of longing for more. Humans are wired to long for more, even when we have something great. It's just part of how we have evolved as a species. If we were just like, hey, let's just settle in the teepees and let's just live in the clay huts for the rest of our lives, then we wouldn't have any of the infrastructure or the technology that we do now. So humans are wired to say, okay, that's great, but what's next? And it's an active practice to allow ourselves to feel content, but it's not our default. And so it's okay to long for more and to maybe feel a sense of longing or envy when we do read some of these stories. But that doesn't necessarily mean we always have to jump at creating more for ourselves. We can take small steps towards cultivating more of what we're looking for, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong to have that longing. And in fact, in the Escape Fantasy episode that I'll link to in the show notes, fantasy can actually be something that does inspire us to take small steps in our life. So for example, maybe we have this fantasy of like just moving to a new country and starting fresh, right? Well, what if we just do a day trip to somewhere nearby, right? Like maybe we are just craving some sort of novelty. Or maybe we have this fantasy of, okay, we have to break up with our partner and like go find this new person. Okay, instead of doing that, can we spend a little bit more time alone on our own, filling our own cup and practicing, as Natalie of Anxious Love Coach called it in one of my podcasts, being single while in a relationship. Maybe we're just craving more time to fill our own cup and we haven't actually been doing that. So we think we have to go break up with our partner and be single. So these fantasies that we have, whether they're coming from within or coming from a book that we're reading, they can inspire us to take actions in our own life, but we don't have to do the extreme thing. That's jumping into black or white thinking. but we can take small steps towards things that we want to create more of. So that leads me to kind of the action that you can take if you are reading fiction, and if you notice feelings of discomfort come up, and you notice the escape hatch fantasy coming up of I need to escape my current life and get into this new life, there's a few different ways to respond. The first is starting by coming back to a sense of safety in this moment right here. You are reading, you are watching a TV show, you are not in danger, assuming that you are like in a safe, cozy space, right? Take time to slow down your breathing. Tell yourself the mantra, I can handle this discomfort. I can be with these feelings. A moment of discomfort from reading a book doesn't necessarily mean that you have to avoid that book or you can't keep going. It's just a moment to practice tending to the sensations or tending to the feelings. And the more resilient we feel to acknowledge, oh, that made me feel a little uncomfortable, but I know I can show up and support myself, then we don't have to make our world smaller. We don't have to say, well, I'm never going to watch these movies, I'm never going to read these books, but we can just build up our tolerance, if you will, for feeling uncomfortable. So that's the first piece, is just like on the spot, practicing ways to regulate and come back to your body and be compassionate to those feelings and remind yourself you can be with the discomfort. The second piece could be using what you're seeing as a cue to reflect on the type of relationship you desire. So, for example, maybe there's a couple that you're reading about and they're very adventurous or they seem very affectionate, whatever it is. You can reflect like, okay, what are the types of experiences I want to have in my relationship? What are the types of feelings I want to feel? Not 24/7, but what are some of the feelings I want to create and cultivate in my relationship? And then kind of reflecting again, like what would be the actions that I can take to help bring these things to life? This is the work of being in a relationship. It's, kind of getting creative, like what do I want this to look like? And then collaborating to make it happen. Great relationships are not found, they are built. And in order to sustain a great relationship, you have to keep reflecting and keep showing up and keep taking action. If things were really fun in the beginning of your relationship and now they feel boring, okay, how can we infuse some of that fun again? It doesn't mean that we have to act literally like we did at the start of a relationship towards the middle of a relationship. It doesn't always have to look exactly the same in different chapters, but we can infuse elements of the things we're longing for. And so that's kind of the second thing. The first is coming back to feeling safe in the moment. The second is reflecting on what it is you do desire in your relationship. And then the third piece would just be taking small actions to cultivate and to build that relationship. And some of that is starting with the relationship you have with yourself. Like realizing, oh, wow, I have a lot of longings for more passion and excitement in my life. Oh, maybe I need to actually start doing some of my hobbies again, or I need to start, having more of the time with my friends that I've been missing. Some of it can be an internal first step, but we can also, of course, take those steps within our relationship. And I know it might feel like, oh, well, why do I have to do all this stuff? But part of the escape hatch fantasy is just wanting someone else to come and rescue us from having to be a responsible adult. And so this is part of just taking ownership for how you want your life and relationship to look. And if you're craving more of something, then taking responsibility for that and taking small steps to collaborate to make it happen.